So as we come off of the terrible Bills game that was just so awful, to say the least. I mean, that was one of the worst giveaway games I've seen as a Buffalo Bills fan, and there's been quite a few giveaway games, that I refer to. The Buffalo Bills gave the Houston Texans that victory. 5 turnovers from Deshaun Watson, 3 fumbles, 2 interceptions. Bills defense played as good as you could ask for, and yet Buffalo's offense was, let's just say, not up to par. And I point the blame at every facet of their offense, including the offensive coordinator, Brian Dable, including anyone on offense. Their coaches, their personnel, play calling, all the way around. I haven't been impressed. I just haven't. That's my opinion. People can agree, disagree. I really don't care. I'm going to continue to state my opinion and what I believe and what I see. You know, based on my opinion is based on what I see, and what I've seen so far is a highly predictable offense with very little talent on it, mind you, but talent nonetheless that is not being used to its fullest capacity. So, all in all, that's my thoughts in a nutshell on the Bills game. Now, as we move forward, MMA, Bellator MMA, Ryan Bader advances to the finals of the Bellator MMA tournament. Ryan Bader, the current light heavyweight champion in Bellator MMA. Meanwhile, Fedor Emelianenko, the next day, on Saturday, yesterday, Bader advances on Friday with a resounding victory over Matt Mitrione, and Fedor Emelianenko advances with a resounding victory over Chael Sonnen. So we have the Bellator Heavyweight Grand Prix. This tournament is finally complete, finally ready to finish off, and Bader and Mitrione are now done. Fedor and Chael are now done. Now the finals are set between Bader and Fedor. And this is the matchup that I actually expected. I was rooting for Chael P, but he just wasn't able to get it done. In moments, it looked like Chael Sonnen had some really good positions on Fedor. It looks like he kind of cracked the code a little bit, but unfortunately it was too little too late, as Fedor was able to land some solid shots on Chael from top position in a reversal, and that was that. And in terms of the Bader-Mitrione fight, that fight wasn't even close. Matt Mitrione wasn't winning a second of that fight, and Bader practically ragdolled him the entire 15 minutes as the final bell, sounded off. So, really, this Bellator Heavyweight Grand Prix has really created something new for Bellator. It's given Bellator a little bit of a new angle, a new lease on life as far as their selling power, how are they going to sell themselves. So much of the fact that this tournament was so successful as far as ratings went, that they created another tournament in another weight division at welterweight, 170 pounds, where we'll see a Bellator welterweight Grand Prix where all the tournament fights will be 5-round fights, being that the current Bellator welterweight champ, Rory McDonald, will be taking on John Fitch in that first round of that tournament. So that'll add a new wrinkle to the tournament style. This tournament at heavyweight, being that the heavyweight champion was not in this tournament, the title was vacated. We'll find out who the Bellator heavyweight champion is going to be between Ryan Bader and Fedor Emelianenko. Bader dispatches King Mo Lawal. Bader dispatches Matt Mitrione. Meanwhile, Fedor dispatches Frank Mir and dispatches Chael Sonnen. So both of these guys have really done well against the opposition that was offered to them, whether it was the early onset quarterfinal matchup that was actually given to them or the matchup that they earned, being that they advanced in the semifinals. They both fought very, very well in both of those fights, in Fedor and Bader. So this is a good matchup. Ryan Bader is the real deal All-American wrestler from Arizona State. That's largely what helped him win the Ultimate Fighter. Fedor Emelianenko is regarded as the greatest MMA heavyweight of all time. That's up for debate. We could debate that at another point. But I can't disagree with the fact that he's one of the greatest. And for him to be fighting at the ripe age of 42, 43 years old and competing at this high of a level, coming off of, as I said, back-to-back wins against Frank Mir, who was a former champion, and Chael Sonnen, who is a former title challenger in the UFC and in the WEC, and realistically would have been a WEC middleweight champion had they, handled that situation properly. But that's another topic for another day. And really, Fedor really showed me a lot in this fight with Chael Sonnen. He showed me that despite the fact that Chael could get him down, his ability to land that power shot is still there. He can still land that power shot. He throws very hard punches, and his speed for his size is truly remarkable. For a guy that weighs 240 pounds, a guy that does not look as physically intimidating as any MMA fighter I've ever seen. I'm not saying he looks like Roy Nelson, but he's not cut. He's not ripped. He's Fedor. He's this big, powerful, pudgy heavyweight that is just able to land these solid, skull-crushing shots. Whether Ryan Bader could take one of those skull-crushing shots is another story, but if I'm Ryan Bader, as I segue to his game plan, I'd be looking to take Fedor down and keep him down, much like Bader did to Matt Mitrione. And there was a thought that I had as far as Bader's performances in these two fights, whether it was King Mo or Matt Mitrione. He beat King Mo in 15 seconds, starched him, knocked him out, and then he offers us a 3-round, 15-minute drubbing. So we've seen Ryan Bader win 2 fights in 2 completely opposite ways, both of which he didn't even take a punch. Didn't even take a punch in either of these fights. Maybe he got a couple punches from Mitrione, but nothing too major is what I'm saying. He came out of those fights relatively unscathed. And you could say the same for Fedor. Fedor knocked out Frank Mir. Fedor knocked out Chael Sonnen. TKO'd both of them in the first round. So we're going to have 2 fresh heavyweights in this heavyweight Grand Prix final, this finale. And it's already scheduled for January 26th, which is November, December, 3 months away. But I wonder, being that these fighters came out relatively unscathed, if Bellator will push this a little bit ahead, being that this is a heavyweight title fight, Bellator really needs to get the heavyweight champion, that they need to figure out who that guy is. Their previous heavyweight champion never defended the title, fought in other organizations, and that was at a point when Bellator is nowhere near the level that it is at currently. And there's still room to improve, but having a true heavyweight champion that was basically an earned heavyweight champion from this tournament will be huge. Very huge for that organization. And if that heavyweight champion ends up being the guy that is also the light heavyweight champion, then that's even bigger. Ryan Bader defected from the UFC, very tough circumstances that he left the UFC. And, we've seen that before. Fighters leave the UFC a little bit disgruntled. Ryan Bader was one of those guys. Never got the title shot against Daniel Cormier. Never got that opportunity to show what he was truly capable of in a title fight in the UFC. And then Bellator brings him in. He gets a first fight, title shot, and definitely has made the most of his career in Bellator, as he is at 1 win away from being, like Daniel Cormier was at one point, the heavyweight and the light heavyweight champion. I'm going to talk about that Cormier thing, too, in a little bit, so stay tuned for that. But nonetheless, I'm very pumped for this fight. I've really enjoyed the tournament. I think the tournament has been great for Bellator. It's offered the MMA audience a new way to watch fights. Takes out the matchmaking. Granted, Bellator put matchmaking together for the quarterfinals round. But then after that, the tournament plays itself out. That dictates who fights who. I like that. That was how MMA was built. Granted, those men would fight in one event on one night. This has been played out over almost a year now. I've really enjoyed it. I hope they continue to do it. I hope it becomes a staple of their organization because it's original in their own way. They've made it their own way with their own fighters, and I look forward to it. But if I were to give a prediction as far as who would win the finals matchup, I'd have to just really look at the recent run of fighters. This is a striker versus grappler matchup. Fedor the striker, Bader the grappler. In most cases, that grappler wins. That grappler didn't win against Fedor, or else we'd have two grapplers. We'd have Chael the grappler and Bader the grappler. But we have a grappler versus a striker. I don't know if Ryan Bader can take the punch of Fedor, but I also don't know if Fedor can take the takedown offense of Ryan Bader. Can he defend that? I think that's a bigger question because Chael was able to get him down. He just couldn't maintain the position. I think it was mainly due to the fact that he's a lot smaller. Chael Sonnen at one point was fighting at middleweight contender, light heavyweight contender. I think he's going to go back down to light heavyweight after this loss and grow from there, continue his career from there. But I think Bader looked very good and healthy at heavyweight, fighting in 230, 235, might have been even a little bit more than that. But I'm going to lean with Bader for this one. I'm going to lean with Bader for the finals matchup. I'll go deeper into the fight as we get closer to it, but if I were to pick who I think will win right now, right here, right now, I would lean towards Bader. Because I saw Fedor get taken down by Chael multiple times before he was ultimately able to finish him, getting that dominant position in a scramble. But I would lean towards Bader. He's been very impressive in this tournament. I think winning two different fights, two very different ways, shows how dangerous of a fighter he is, and he is a current champion at light heavyweight. So there you have it. I'm Ryan Thomas. That was the Thomas Take, my reaction to Bellator MMA, the semifinal recap of the World Heavyweight Grand Prix that Bellator put together this last year, January of 2018. It will end in January of 2019, and it's been fun. I hope you've enjoyed the tournament just as much as I have. Hope you enjoyed this podcast just as much as I enjoyed bringing it to you. Take care. We'll be right back as I give my take on the John Jones-Alexander Gustafsson rematch.